remind everyone that we endeavor to be done at 6:30 this evening. The agenda is posted. Could I suggest that everyone mute their microphones, turn everybody off? That way you'd be free to unmute yourself. We're getting a lot of background in the. So anyone who's here electronically, I assume if you can mute your microphone. Yeah, it's usually there.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. So I think Amy, when she posted, did use the previous agenda that was the one meeting that also said presentation for a little bit beyond that. So we'll call this meeting officially open. And Sam, you have a presentation. I know Andrew said he's ill, so he's not the spokesperson in the room this evening.
I'll be filling in as Andrew's understudy. We wanted to keep continuity for the sake of the group, so we put another middle-aged bearded man to speak.
Richard, for a minute to say your name.
Absolutely. My name is James Dallin. I'll be serving the role of Andrew tonight. And I'm thrilled to do that. Just to introduce myself, I am a teacher at MD Middle School. I'm also a parent that has a child coming into the district next year at Monument. And I joined the negotiations team purely for tonight. The only thing I was looking forward to, and I wish Andrew was here. I'm happy to fill in because I have great concern for my son's safety and the safety of every other parent's son and daughter, or non-conforming to gender role person. My son recently told me about the experience I was having at school. And he said, I was worried about that they're going to take my goodness away, Daddy. That the other students are going to take that. And I looked him in the eye and I said, no one can take your goodness away, son. No one. That's for you. You can do what you want with it. And I said that, I don't know if it's true. I worry about the goodness of all of our students and what a lack of safety in the classroom looks like for them. And I worry about all the parents out there who have to feel the same thing that I'm feeling now. And that worry is within me. But then the other night when I was preparing for this meeting, I read a testimonial from a teacher who talked about how she saw this student come in as a kindergartner, active and engaged and vivacious. And after seeing trauma after trauma within the classroom, after experiencing difficulty after difficulty, by the time that student got to third grade, she walked up to the teacher and punched her in the face. Like it was nothing, like it was commonplace. And I fear that within the district, things that used to be rare are now common fare. And so tonight we're meeting to show that this is a real problem. Because previously we've heard that there's no place for safety within our collective bargaining agreement. But we want to show as a union, as people who work in this district, that safety is our primary concern, and it is a real problem here. And we want to talk about some of these issues, and we hope that by the end of it, the board and the public at large understand the circumstances that we face, and why it's so important for this language to be part of our collective bargaining agreement. I'm going to read a prepared statement by Andrew. The Southwest Vermont Education Association is committed to the safety of teachers, para-educators, staff, learners, and any person entering our workplaces. We do not believe that this board feels differently. 3 years ago, the SWVEA and this board agreed to the formation of a safety committee. The committee was created and was agreed to be equally represented by the association and administration. Over the duration of our last agreement, the safety committee met and reported abounding evidence showing that safety policies currently in place are not providing safe workplaces. Tonight, we bring stories and accounts that show that continuing with the status quo will not do. The association was informed in our previous negotiating meetings that our contract has been a long-standing document that has the language needed for safe workplaces. This board would not agree to our proposed safety language changes, which would improve working conditions. It is clear that in our current educational environments, things have changed. We must agree that old contract language is no longer sufficient. It is imperative that we come to an agreement on language that guarantees safety for all employees who work in our schools and educational buildings. There's no doubt both the association and the board cannot disagree on providing a safe workplace. We have prepared some language changes that should be agreeable to the board. We're here to negotiate. So if there are changes to the language that this board proposes, we ask that you counter-propose those changes. Because let us be clear, whatever language changes we both agree to, we need to understand that leaving the language as is will not move us closer to an agreement. In response to your comments and concerns from our first proposal, the safety language that we're counter-proposing is taken and adapted from other agreements in Vermont. One district has the language on the books for some time, and another affiliate has a tentative agreement that should be ratified soon. We look forward to being another association whose board agrees that safety in their schools and workplaces is of utmost importance to them. This evening, you will hear some of the stories and accounts that have occurred in our schools. We have brought as many as would be willing to share, as others have voiced concern over retribution for coming forward. We want this board to understand that all of these accounts have happened under the agreements we have established in the past. After hearing these accounts, we will ask this board if they still do not feel the need for language changes around safety. We hope that you'll agree to discuss and make changes as necessary so we can move closer to a tentative agreement. So our first speaker is Christina Strauss.
I'll stand up. So I have worked in this district for many years, over 7. Some things that I have encountered thus far by children that are under 7 years old or 7 years old have been being hit, kicked, spit on, slapped, bitten, my hair pulled, and punched in the face. I've had kids destroy my classroom and my teaching space, destroying furniture, teaching materials, other students work in artwork, and throwing iPads. Most of them are trying to hurt me with these objects. I had to hide my pregnancy from my classroom for over 6 months due to physical violence directed towards me because I was just trying to teach them. Being called horrible names, and I'm going to censor these, but know that they have said the real word, the C word, B word, they, whole, dirty, or, and a slut. These incidences usually occur, all happening while kids are in the room trying to learn. I have had to stop learning altogether after these incidences to help process with my class because they have become traumatized by all of this. My heart breaks when they say that they are scared and afraid. And the worst part is that they are more worried about me getting hurt than themselves. I am also a parent. My child is currently in kindergarten, and I fear that he is seeing this happening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next testimonial, we have Jen Fisher.
So I'm Jen Fisher. I work at Mount Anthony Union High School. I've worked for the SVSU since 2001. I was a special educator, associate director. And then just this year I became English. And on my second day, I was in one of my, it sounded like chairs being thrown, desks being thrown, and then I heard a lot of glass breaking. I was able to barricade the shared door, evacuate my class to another room away from the incident, and then I had to call security. Unfortunately, incidents like this are not isolated. In fact, my concern is that there are numerous students that I know of who have been brought back to our school after not being successful in the residential or therapeutic treatment programs, and without any safety or educational plans. I'm also aware of numerous students that were given safety evaluations and were deemed unsafe to be in a public school setting, but we were told to give them a full schedule in the mainstream. In my 23 years with this district, I've worked with students with emotional and behavioral disabilities, and it makes me sad because the conversation about safety isn't about the students. It's about not having an environment that is safe for all. These testimonials make it sound as if the students are dangerous, but it's not about that. It's about not having the appropriate supports and needs in place for them. We have a national teacher shortage, so finding teachers is a challenge for all districts. So why would a teacher want to come to ours if we aren't putting the safety of our students and teachers as a top priority? So I'm a firm believer that if I'm going to come to you with a problem, I better have an idea of a solution. So I'm volunteering myself to have a conversation with any of you, or even at the district level, to see what we can do to make this district a safe and enjoyable place to learn and to work. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Jen Facto, parent.
So I'm a parent of a student at Molly Stark and a former employee at Molly Stark School. So dear Superintendent Colleen and SVSU Board, I'm writing as a community member, former educator, and mother of young children. I'm asking you to incorporate safety plans into the contracts of our educators to help better serve our learners, as well as the staff that are integral in helping them become functional members of society. The fact that raising and educating children in this day and age is far different than previous years is no surprise. Not only that, but all of our children have been affected in one way or another during what I refer to as the COVID era. Been hurt by another child. He had been kicked in the head pretty hard. He was okay, but should be evaluated. Ran through my head. When I arrived, Spencer's teacher met me with him at the door. When I first looked at him, I was not mentally prepared to see my first grade son's face swollen and marked up. Tears filled my eyes behind my tinted glasses while his teacher explained to me that after being evaluated by the nurse, he was so brave, and he and his classmates reflected on what had happened right in front of their innocent eyes. As I drove my brave boy to Express Care to be evaluated, he rehashed what had just happened to him. He explained that he was playing soccer, and another first grader that was not in his class and was not a child he knew came up and took apart their soccer goal. Spencer said, "Not cool, man," and the details after that made my stomach turn. He told me that the child then kicked him down the hill that they were playing on, and once he came to rest, the child repeatedly kicked my son in the temple and cheekbone. Spencer kept wondering out loud, "Mom, I just don't understand what I did wrong to him. He wouldn't let me up, Mom. He wouldn't even let me get up. He just kept kicking me." Hearing these words coming from my 6-year-old made me infuriated, heartbroken, and a lot of other things in between. I explained to him that sometimes there isn't anything that you did wrong, and sometimes we don't always get to find out the answer why. In our 2-hour time in Express Care, while waiting in between nurse and provider evaluations, we talked a lot. Spencer did not have a concussion, but lots of bumps and bruises, including a large bruise on the cheek that was on the ground while the other side was being kicked. In the next few days at home, we talked with his friends, families, and with him about what to do if someone's hurting your friend. Many of his friends were worried that they'd be in trouble for putting their hands on the other child to remove them from Spencer. These children have all been taught hands off, hands off, hands off, but very little times has the discussion of what to do when someone doesn't follow the rules of safety, or what to do when someone does follow the rules. Luckily, the following day was a half day, so he didn't have to worry about recess, as there was no recess on half days scheduled. As an enraged mom, I wanted to know who the child was and if he had any sort of behavior plan or supports in place and where all the adults were during the duration of this attack. Administration did contact me. We met and discussed the plan going forward. In the meanwhile, I heard from other parents that this specific child had multiple hands-on incidences. The child was allowed to return to school the very next day following the attack, which honestly felt unfair as a parent, and I can imagine as a teacher or para, it could have also been unsettling. To me, this child should have placement in a facility or school that is equipped to handle whatever behavioral disorder that this child struggles with and can get to the bottom of what the physical or destructive behavior is driven by. This is one story about situations that our beloved educators and staff face throughout their time in the classroom. Other destructive behaviors, including throwing items, screaming and yelling, destroying the classroom, are all examples. These integral adults in our children's lives deserve to have security in having a procedure for when these situations occur and ensure that they're handled properly. Without having these supports, I feel that I can hinder the ability of our teachers to feel safe in their home, which in turn trickles down and leads to our children feeling safe and protected. Without these supports, I cannot fathom the amount of teachers and staff that may leave this field due to unsafe conditions. Please help us as a learning community to preserve the safety and integrity of those shaping the minds of our youth, our future.
Thank you, Jen. Nobody should have to be a brave boy to go to first grade, or fifth, or 12th, or any other grade that we are in charge of. Our schools need to be a safe place for all students and staff. While those are the three speakers who were willing to give testimony tonight, we also got testimony from many others. We've taken those testimonials and put them together, and there's 4 different areas that kept up time and time again. The first area was violence. A former colleague of mine at the middle school is married to a federal law enforcement officer. Just telling me about how she couldn't sleep at night when he had a night shift because she was so worried that he might not return home. And that made sense to me. It didn't surprise me. He's a law enforcement officer. It's a dangerous job. But the thing that surprised me was to hear that he had the same dread whenever she went to work at the middle school. That's the reality we're living in. The loved ones of teachers have to face the daily toll that comes from their loved ones working in an increasingly hazardous field. We sought testimonials about safety concerns from across our membership, and the result was a stunning depiction of the dangers our educators face on a daily basis. Person after person talked about death threats they've received or heard directed at their others. I'm going to shoot up your classroom. I'm going to hunt people down and murder them.
No.
I'm going to slit your throat. Now, there's no fear for me that any of these quotes or incidents violates FERPA because they're so common that they couldn't possibly be attributed to any one student. It's the norm now to hear something like this and for it to be explained away by a CSTAG assessment. While having a procedure in place to assess how likely these threats are to occur is a start, it doesn't take away from the fact that the constant threat of death directed at us or our students, that creates an extremely real and cumbersome burden upon each and every person within our school and all of our loved ones back home. Perhaps most disheartening was hearing the testimonials of violence against women that were pregnant. Just as Christina gave her personal testimony earlier, other educators came forward to talk about physical violence they faced while pregnant. The most heartbreaking coming from an educator in the district who was threatened multiple times by a student. It was told by that student that the student would stab her until she and her baby were dead. This was repeated day after day over the course of months. Little to no response. 2 years later, the same educator was once again pregnant and was unfortunately assaulted by a student. A few days later, this educator miscarried. This loss of life of a future family member perhaps could have been avoided if adequate safety policies were in place within the district. Other educators report their concern about the high level of violence within our schools that does not rise to the level of moral danger. The physical violence against staff and students is also unfortunately commonplace. Many educators wrote about their experiences being physically attacked, being bitten, punched, hit with large and dangerous objects. Many mentioned that they had to go to the hospital as a result of workplace violence. While many of us educators will refer to teaching as a calling, that doesn't make it less of a workplace. And the workers within that workplace have a right to safe working conditions. Another common area that came up with sexual harassment. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, 77% of our teachers are female, which is why it was so heartbreaking to read about how common sexual harassment is within our workplace. It's not occasional, it's omnipresent. Female educators from elementary, middle, high schools all reported stunning and shameful comments that they've had to endure. Educators report being asked by their male students to fillet them during class, of being questioned during their classes about their sexual skills, and having to hear students talk openly and loudly during class about their bodies. One particular team of teachers wrote about how every single female member of the team had been subjected to sexual harassment while working at their school. The sexual harassment can't be allowed to continue unabated within our system. Our union membership is predominantly women, and it's absolutely essential that we fight for working conditions where they can feel safe from sexual harassment. The third area that we found time and again was hate speech and hate iconography. Vermont is becoming increasingly more diverse, but with that diversity has come its age-old nemesis, hate. Numerous accounts of teachers of color being called the N-word and other derogatory names were shared with us. Additionally, many teachers of Jewish heritage were exceptionally concerned about the increased incidence of hateful iconography within our schools. Unfortunately, swastika is present in our classrooms and hallways more often than some of our students. Many of these teachers were concerned that repeated documentation and reporting of these incidents were met with no discernible changes. Hate is a contagion. Unless we inoculate our schools by clear and specific policies, it will only continue to spread more out of control than it already is. The fourth section, of grossly disruptive students. The final area of testimonials revolved around these people. We had incidents reported of students who continuously bully staff and students. We had other incidents where students were so dysregulated that they frequently physically destroyed the classroom that they were in, making it impossible for students to learn. It's the opinion of this negotiating team that every single student has a right to learn and receive an education. That includes the students that are so often forgotten within our system. The 95% of students who are doing nothing wrong, they're simply trying to learn. Our system and policies are failing 100% of students by not providing the 5% of students that are grossly disruptive with the mental, educational, and social supports and educational environments that meet their needs. These four areas of concern are why many qualified and experienced educators have left our district over the last few years. They're the same reasons many more educators will leave over the next few years, unless something is done. That's why we're here tonight, to provide substantive and actionable changes to our collective bargaining agreement that will result in a safer workplace for our teachers and thus a safer classroom for our students. As we've learned through UBL education that we've all been part of, it's not the learner, it's the design. We need to fix our design. We have proposed, so we have a copy of these testimonials for everybody. And we also have proposed contract language changes for everybody. You'll see that we have pared back substantially our language and made it in line with the language that we use in other local districts in Vermont. This is not from some foreign hostile state. This is from our neighbors and friends, our sister schools. Would you like me to read through them, or would you like time to look at them on your own? Okay, and how long would you like? Checking each other. So,
You have to know the districts for this one.
I do, so it's west.
So one of them is, one of the oranges, orange, it's one of the 4 oranges.
Okay.
And then the other one, because it hasn't been ratified yet, I can't tell you where it's from. It is somewhere in the central part of the state. Once it is ratified, we are happy to tell you.
Just file forward on that to him, right?
Is it? It's done.
Okay, thanks for letting us take a little bit longer than we planned. One of the questions, that we had is, with the new proposals for the safety language, are you excluding 18 or 8.16? Because is this a new proposal in totality, or you just add, like, changing language just to these items?
It's a new proposal entirely.
Okay, so 8.16 does not exist. Okay. Thank you.
Which one was 8.16? I apologize. I left it here.
It was the portion, what it says to recognize the increased threat to the public education.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So that is gone. Okay. First off, I want to say, the board and administration really appreciates the time and effort it took and, people coming out to speak and giving us those, the stories, as well as compiling the other information in the 4, areas that we can talk about. Safety is of the utmost concern for the board and for the administration. Right now, we are unable, we need some time, and to talk to legal counsel in order to give a response to the new language proposals. But I do want, I appreciate all the time and effort that everyone came out and to share this with us. Are there any other counter proposals that you came prepared to discuss today?
Not in regards to safety, no.
Okay.
Which was, we try to restrict it just to safety, for this
For this
session.
session. Okay.
Though we're, interested in continuing, negotiating and, on other issues, absolutely. So, for future sessions.
Okay. One of the things that came up from the board, we were wanted to go back to the ESP, negotiations. I think the last place we, had countered at, or there was a counter for 8+ step. Was that counter including any language changes or the 8+ step plus all the language changes that we've had tentatively agreed on?
For separating safety language from the 8.5, it was offered purely based on salary and the other negotiated tentative agreements, but it did not include,
So you
so
said,
like a final, no adding of safety language. The ESPs within our union are interested in safety as well, and are interested in safety language associated with that.
okay, because the board is prepared this evening to agree with 8+ step, with no other language changes other than the tentative changes or the tentative agreements that we've already had in place.
Okay, we'll have to discuss on that.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
Is that, could safety still be included in that conversation for ESPs?
Yeah, this would
Close out that.
be the end of the negotiation.
That would be 2 years too.
Is that something that you would want to focus on, or I'm just looking at the time?
We could caucus within, it's 5 minutes? Okay, we'll return in 5 minutes. Thank you. The ESPs have unanimously agreed that safety unfortunately can't be traded for any amount. That these problems are pernicious, not just for teachers, but all educators, including the SPs. And that they feel that it is essential within their CBA to protect them in their jobs. And so that they can't accept that. And are very much interested in getting the same collective bargaining safety language in their contract as it can be in ours. But we appreciate very much your willingness to talk about it.
At this point, I don't, we don't have anything else on
Can I schedule a date?
yeah.
We are eager to continue the conversation, and especially eager to hear your response on the various proposals that we made today. We made progress towards tentative agreements. We are available as soon as next Monday in order to continue reaching our goal of coming to
Our
a
attorney is not going to be there after that.
Okay, and you don't feel comfortable moving forward without your attorney?
I mean, no,
Okay.
especially in safety and
That's what she returns to work.
And so we've agreed, and it's after the 19th, so we'll do the earliest will be the 26th. And we've agreed kind of March as our end point for this. So if the 26th is the earliest that you can possibly do it, that's what we would do, but it's not leaving a lot of room for tentative agreements. Or anything else.
basically, it's safety and salary, it's like,
And safety salary, we're also, want to revisit the various 4 other points that we have that were unrelated to safety and salary, including but not limited to the sick bank, amongst other things.
Chris, unless you have, I mean, I feel like you probably need the 26th, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
You're available necessarily, but I don't know if we will be able
I think for sure we would be able to have any kind of movement before Dina's return to work, and then that would be, I'm guessing, lots of people this year might be elsewhere. Then
to.
that we do the 19th. I mean, I could do the 19th, but again, I don't know how many school staff are going to go on somewhere. That's your break, yeah. So, since we can't do the 12th, I guess the 26th would work. Do we also want to, in order to schedule the 4th, in order to, assume that we're going forward? I think it would be good to get both days on the calendar.
The AAU board will have a meeting with the high school visiting the team there at 6 o'clock on Monday, lunch break.
Okay.
And policy committee is at 4:30.
That's been canceled, the February, March.
March has been canceled
Yeah,
also,
right, so we're clear there.
So I know the NEAS visiting team is here that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and they have requested to meet with the NAU board at 6 p.m.
And then the vote
I mean, you
is, what, I mean.
You could do negotiations at by 6.
We would be willing to do that.
We can do that.
Are we tied to Mondays? Do we have other days that are open to us? It's a good question.
But we confirm 4:30 on the 26th, right?
Yes. 4:30 to 6:30 standard. I don't know if we're tied to Mondays.
Do you just, do you wanna make the 26th longer? Do you wanna go 4:30 to whenever you decide to finish? The safety and salary on the agenda. I think everything will be on.
I don't think we have enough time to not, to compartmentalize these too much further. Yeah, I mean, we are certainly trying to negotiate in good faith and make sure that these things happen and work through the any issues that we have, and so we would be willing to go as long as you want on the 26th.
Okay, then just refreshing my memory, we have a proposal on the table for salary currently that you not responding to.
No. We have
We have responded.
Your response is that you're not, that you're saying with your original proposal.
It's a counter proposal. That's one of the four things.
Yeah, our, well, I don't know if it's a counter, but it is, we maintain that pay parity with Arlington, within our supervisory union, is essential. Can't have people make different salaries with the same exact supervisory union.
So you're talking teacher salary, correct? Not
Correct, I
ESP?
just,
Okay.
that's like,
Yes, that is still a very heartfelt challenge. Both can be, yeah, there's not a lot of movement on that.
okay, so another possible. That's fine.
We could perhaps counter propose next time in a structure of how that might look. Is that something you would be looking for, or amenable to?
I think we need to hear more. I think as it stands right now, I don't know that there's going to be any sort of movements. I think there needs to be something else.
We'll have to meet and discuss that, but it's, hard to argue with that. But we'll see if we can come up with something that might be more amenable to you. If you can tell us what particular conditions you might be looking at, we'll be happy to help.
Okay, so we have the 26th at 4:30 and do you want to schedule for 2.5 hours? Look, if it's going to be productive, if, I don't have a problem with it, but.
Yeah, I don't have anything else scheduled. That's my last thing for the day, so hang out all night. Not hang out, we're guilty.
Jim, does that work, is that work?
I'll try to.
Okay. We'll try for 2.5. I think
Okay, so
nothing
seven.
else really ever productive beyond that point, I guess. So.
And do we want to keep March 4th, or do we want to readdress it on the February 26th?
I said the 4th from 4:30 to 6 o'clock.
I'm fine, yeah.
To keep it protected, I think
Yeah.
that makes sense. All right.
I'm sorry, I got like, now Anthony, like this, Spinelli, we got a lot of things.
Would it be helpful if each team took all the things that are still on the table to compile one?
That'd be helpful.
Andrew, wanted to just ask for clarification. Was there any particular reason that the board had problems with like ESPs having safety language changes within their contract, as opposed to like teachers?
The reason, I mean, and Jim, you can answer, my understanding is the reason that's something that like we had a negotiation on with respect to salaries, so I was just thinking on that, we made an effort, we want to, I don't know, Jim, you had other thoughts, but.
I guess I don't really understand what Andrew's question.
Yes.
Honestly.
I think it had to do with the fact,
Because the language is different in two different proposals, so I have to say tonight.
is it,
Well, the idea was that this would supersede the safety limit for both.
yeah, this is,
Sorry,
Oh,
that's not
I did
my
not
understanding.
Okay.
so this is safety language from teachers and parents for both, and it should cover both. It is not.
That's not how we do it.
That is not my, that was.
Oh, okay, I apologize for that. No, this is, for both contracts.
Okay, well,
Then
that.
we will have to go back and reread, because that's not how we read the proposal from